Well, let's go ahead and get started. Nothing like the teacher showing up late. I would have given you guys the 5-minute rule, and then you could have left, but here I am. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started on a topic called classroom management, which obviously, if this was my classroom, I would be off to a bad start already. But let's go ahead and talk about classroom management and, yeah, Doug, I hear you. Classroom management in online courses. Well, let's get started. I always like to start off my sessions with a question or a poll, and let's start this off today. How do you define classroom management in your online courses? I know a lot of you maybe teach seated courses or even teach the younger kids and all that, but how would you define classroom management in your online courses? I'll give you maybe just a minute or so to kind of think about that and chat in. Absolutely. Good, Doug, Cheryl, thank you. Yeah. Creating efficient engagement and being present and aware of what's going on in the class. Absolutely. We're going to talk about both of those things just a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about classroom management. First of all, what is it? So defining classroom management, this is your textbook version of classroom management. Defined as the act of supervising relationships, behaviors, instructional settings, and lessons for communities of learners. It's basically, you're the teacher in the class. You're the one who's responsible for not only the students, but what they'll be learning. Are they going to meet the objectives? How are you going to build that community of learners in the classroom? And then what do you do about the different behaviors from your students? You're going to have a wide variety of students in your classrooms, okay? So how are you going to manage all that? And it can be kind of a hefty task, especially if you're new to teaching or new to even online teaching. So one of the best things that I've found is that instructors should probably try to take a proactive approach. In other words, try to think about the issues, and we'll talk a little bit about these issues, so they'll kind of all fit together in just a minute, but think about the issues that you may have in class, and then try to take a preventive approach to this. And I think it takes a lot of structure in your classes, setting forth expectations from the very beginning of the course, having an interesting and engaging lesson plan. Okay, have an interesting curriculum. And then, of course, effective teaching comes in. Effective teaching would probably be a whole other professional development topic, so we're not going to really talk about that a whole lot, but we'll try to get into some of these other areas as well. All right. What other goodies do we have? Hey, I came across this quote. When teachers talk about the most difficult problems they experience in their first years of teaching, they mention classroom management and discipline most often. I know when I first started teaching well, I was a 7th grade teacher in a seated class before I moved on to college level. Classroom management and discipline were a real issue. And so even at the college level, we'll experience this somewhat, but regardless of the format, whether it's seated or online, we may have behaviors. We may have those students in our classrooms that, for whatever the reason, aren't functioning well, and we need to know how to handle that and how to address it before it happens if we can. So effective classroom management is probably one of the most important responsibilities that you'll have as an online educator. Okay, Doug, you say, I'm not very good in classroom teaching, problems with keeping discipline and attention. Hey, that's been my problem forever. Online teaching has different feedback mechanisms. Absolutely. Yeah, you know, even though we're going to have a lot of the same issues in both our online and seated classes, how we address them and the formats in which we address some of these issues, they might be a little bit different. And so we'll kind of address that as well. Okay? All right. So what are some of those challenges in the online environment? If you've ever had a classroom of students at any level, you know, you're going to have your talkers, you're going to have your quiet students, you're going to have those who come every once in a while. Well, you know, those same things happen in our online courses as well. So you got to know, first and foremost, is that you're going to have a diversity of students in your class. You're going to have different learning styles. You're going to have different backgrounds. Some will be traditional, some will be non-traditional. And so there's just a lot of challenges in that online environment. Some of your online students are going to have feelings of isolation. You know, they're set apart from the rest of their classmates. How do you pull them in? How is your curriculum going to pull those students in, okay, to have them be successful in your course? Your non-traditional students, those who are coming in later in life or having a career change or whatever, they're going to have work and family and school issues to deal with. So, you know, their participation in class is going to differ from maybe your younger students. And by nature of the online environment, students may be more bold about expressing opinions. I've had several instances in online classes where, you know, students will just say things that you wouldn't even imagine that they would say. And just because, well, you're hiding behind a computer screen, you're not face-to-face. And so some students are more bold about what they say. On the other side of things, you may have students who, for whatever the reason, just won't participate. The online class may not be their thing, and you may not get much participation. So you're going to have those students in your class. And those students may need additional contact points to get engaged and motivated. So you might find yourself, you know, doing a few more emails or maybe some announcements in your class, trying to catch up with those students who may not be participating as much. But overall, communication needs to be consistent and continual. As teachers in the online environment, we are not there face-to-face. So our main form of contact is with our students is through our announcements, through our presence in the discussions and things like that. So communication is important. Okay, I'm going to head on over here to the chat box just a minute because I can see it moving around. I've gotten a few rants from students and comments to assignments. Oh, yeah. I take that as a measure of their confidence in me. Yeah, I've had the rants. I've had the thank you. That was very nice of you for giving me an A. And then I've had all sorts of everything, other comments in between. How we deal with those and what we expect from our students needs to be expressed right up front. And I think, is that my next slide? Ah, that's my next slide. Okay, so let's kind of talk about some ways that we can help our students stay on task. Okay, that's probably a real main focus of our role as an instructor in a course as far as classroom management. Especially since we don't see them, they're not coming to class in person. Okay, how do we keep them focused and on task? One of the most important things I think we can do is to set our expectations from the very first communication. That welcome email and that welcome announcement that we have before the start of the semester is key to setting those expectations, to setting the tone in the course. Okay, the students need to know where to go in the course. They need to know what to expect from you. They need to know what you expect from them. Okay, and we'll talk about the syllabus in just a minute. But we want to help our students get started and to be successful. And so those welcome emails and the welcome announcements and maybe a welcome video helps them to get to know you as well. Okay, so set those expectations from the very first communication. Let them know that you're there and present for them. Okay. Establish course policies and rules. Okay, we have our OTC rules and guidelines, but every instructor should have course rules and policy. Okay, that could be what your discussion participation requirements are, when assignments should be submitted, things like that. What the netiquette is. We're going to get into netiquette a little bit. Netiquette are those ground rules for discussions, because a lot of what we're going to talk about, a lot of the bad student behavior or good student behavior we see in our classes are happening in the discussions. So we need to establish those rules for postings and things like that in our classes. The other thing that you should probably do at the very first of your class is have that icebreaker. Those students, a huge part of your classroom management is building community in your classrooms. Okay, those interactions between the students and yourself are key to effective classroom management and keeping them engaged in the course. Okay, so they need that interaction. That's why we ask you to do those icebreakers for your first week of class. And then another thing you can do is provide a variety of assignments and assessments. If every week you have your students read a chapter, take a quiz, and write a paper, okay, they're not going to get much out of it. Okay, you risk losing those students. Okay, they're going to get bored. Okay, that's a classroom management issue. They're bored. Okay, so providing a variety of assessments, many methods of assessment in your course, discussions, group activities, simulations, experimentations, research, all that kind of stuff will help keep them focused in the class. Okay, it's a good classroom management tool. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I wish students would be a bit more provocative in discussions rather than a vanilla. I agree. I agree with you. I agree, Doug. One of the ways to have them be more provocative in the discussions is to really, if you can, and if your content area allows it, is to get them to take a side on something. There's nothing like a good debate, and that gets your students all excited. And then you might find you have some classroom management issues. So yeah, debates are great. Anytime that they can take a side on something, or you can present maybe a hot topic for your content area that's out there in some kind of real life thing going on right now, and have them take a side. And I'm gonna give you an example of one thing that happened in my class a little bit later in the session, so you can kind of see what kind of hot topic discussions that I'm talking about. But anyway, a couple other things. Your syllabus is huge for classroom management. Why? Because it sets forth all of your expectations, all the rules, policies, dates, times, all that kind of stuff. It's also a legal document for your course, so you want to make sure that your syllabus is up to date, has all the links and everything, current links and everything like that. But be very, very, very clear and very, present well-defined expectations in your syllabus so your students know. Announcements are another great way to get that information out to your students, what you expect, what the structure of the course will be, everything like that. Okay, reinforce due dates and schedules and timelines for achievement of objectives. Okay, that's part of that structure. Allow students to keep track of their own progress. And when you can, give them a choice. If you have assignments, give them a choice between a couple of different options. Okay, that helps keep them focused and on task. And model the behavior you expect. Students will learn from you. So if you want your students to be participating in the discussions, well, you're going to have to get out there and be present in your discussions as well. They need to see you in there and, providing that feedback that they need. Also helps to be a motivator and be supportive. Okay, students need that. They need that motivation. They need that support. They need to know that you care about their work in the course, that you care about them as a person. So just some ideas for you to take as far as, you know, classroom management. Okay. All right. Okay, so what are some of the common classroom management issues? Well, we can see that guy right there. He's obviously not engaged in his CIS course. That's a shout out to you, Doug. No, he obviously, he's got his Mountain Dew there. That's not helping. Whatever it is, we've got a real classroom management issue here. I'd say lack of engagements probably, or maybe just too much homework and he needed a nap, but who knows. Anyway, some of the common classroom management issues, some of the issues we see in our courses with our students, okay, and signs that there may be an issue with classroom management are a student who doesn't keep in contact with you regularly, okay. You know, you're going to have those students who just email you all the time or post out there in the discussion forums and stuff like that, but you're going to have those ones that you don't hear from at all. What are we doing to help those students participate? Okay, or a student who consistently doesn't do what they say they will. All right, you email them, you tell them that, you know, they can turn in the assignment even if it is a little late, and they say, okay, I'm going to turn it in tomorrow, and then you don't see them for a week. All right, that's a classroom management issue. A student who doesn't achieve set goals or maintain their commitment to study, or doesn't respond to specific requests and questions, all right? Or ignores advice. Okay, you may give advice to a student or some suggestions for improving and they totally ignore it and keep doing the same thing over and over every week. Or contributes inappropriately to group tasks. Who doesn't work as an active and supportive group member. Disrupts other students through their behavior. Oh my, I've had some of those. Probably will, when we get a little bit farther along, I'll probably illustrate a couple of those. You may have those students in discussion forums or maybe in emails that make offensive, aggressive, suggestive, or inappropriate remarks. What do you do about that? Challenges the teacher's authority, either publicly or privately. The publicly ones are probably the ones that are harder to deal with. And then, of course, there's the cheating or the plagiarized work that we have students do on a frequent basis. Okay, all of these things are signs that maybe there's something going on with our classroom management. Did we not make that expectation clear enough, you know, as far as aggressive or suggestive remarks, okay? Did we not maybe emphasize the fact that plagiarism is not a good thing? Okay, so all of these things might contribute to a classroom management issue. Okay, all right. We've all had these students in our class too, by the way, whether we want to admit it or not. All right. Now, like I said, most of our classroom management issues, especially in online courses, and especially if you have discussion forums, well, that's where you're going to see it. Whether it's in the Q&A forum, if you have one, or in regular discussion areas, you may have one of these students. All right, and I don't like to label students, but I came across this study. Yeah, these are familiar. I think I've had every single one of them too. This was a study by Susan Coe, and she put together this list. The know-it-all student who answers questions asked of the instructor so as to contradict him or her rather than add perspective to the discussion. So we've had those know-it-all students. They know more than the teacher, okay? And even if it contradicts the teacher, they know it all. There's the mutineer who complains openly to classmates about what's wrong with the class and encourages others to do the same. We may have the controller who wants all the assignments in advance and has to be the first and last word on everything. And these are my frequent ones. The staller who delays logging into course and always has an excuse for not getting things done. And I have these often as well, the must-have an A student, okay? I don't know, I get these emails from students who say, you know, I've had an A in all my classes and I have a B in yours, so what am I going to do, because like I am not going to get the best job ever if you give me a B in the class. I think I had one just this past semester. Yeah, you know, you just say, hey, you know, you need to work a little harder on some of your assignments. You've got the noisy student. These students who get in the discussion threads and just post about just about everything. They ramble, sort of like I'm rambling. And it's really, sometimes it's related to the topic and sometimes it's not, okay? And then the quiet students, we call those the lurkers. They just kind of hang around, look around. They're current on their assignments, but they really don't participate in online discussions. So how do we get these students all straightened out? Well, and this may be kind of hard to read, and if you're interested in this chart, I can send that to you after this session. But this shows you the disruptor on the left and the instructor response on the right. I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can kind of just scroll through there and see that there's different ways that we can help these students and manage our course a little bit better. What do we do when we have the know-it-all, or we have the staller, or maybe the non-participant student, the ones who don't show up? How do we handle those students? Oh, okay, wait a minute. Let's see. File, save, whiteboard will save a PDF of the slides. Ah, thank you, Doug. I knew you'd get that. Cheryl, we can also I can send you the slide deck as well via email, and then you'll have all this good stuff. Yeah, I've had all of these students in my class. Some of them can be more difficult to handle than others, but I really did like this chart because it kind of gives you some ideas about how to address those students when they do show up in your class. And I want to focus on some of the hot buttons that we see here at OTC Online, and what we hear from the instructors. What to do when students aren't responding or submitting quality work. What can we do with those students, all right? I will mention, and I didn't put a slide in here, and I'm not going to go into Blackboard with this, but if you go into your course menu on the left-hand side of your course, you should find, I think it's under Tools. I might be wrong about that, but it might be under Tools. It's Retention Center. If you've not used Retention Center, this is a great tool in Blackboard to monitor your student progress. For example, if you know a student hasn't been logging in for a while, you can monitor the last access date, when they were last in the course. You can monitor their progress, which is really, really important for when you notice students aren't in the discussions or they're not submitting work. So if you're not using Retention Center yet, it's a great tool to use. I know our Blackboard support area will occasionally have PD sessions on Retention Center. So if you see that come across and you want to learn more about that, you can sit in that session, or even just contact Blackboard support, and then they can kind of give you a rundown on that. But I didn't want to focus on that too much because we want to really just talk about classroom management. All right. So when your students aren't responding or submitting quality work, so you want to have a process for monitoring student input, and that's where Retention Center comes in. All right, so when you notice a student hasn't been in your class for a week or so, what do? Okay, we ought to have a plan in place so you can intervene and start getting in touch with the student. So have a plan for communicating with students. Will it be through email? Will you do an announcement to the whole class? What will that look like? And I think each of us would have a different way of communicating with students in this manner, but you want to make sure that students are reminded of what to expect, of the expectations. Even if halfway through the course you might have to repost your expectations for discussion participation or for submitting assignments on time. They need those reminders. It's kind of a wake-up session for them. Use backup communication such as the telephone for persistent non-response. Sometimes it'll work. Try the email route first and see if you can reach them. Some students will accept a text message from you. Some instructors have Facebook pages, class Facebook pages, and try to reach students that way. You know, whatever's going to work with you, but have a backup communication for your students, especially those who you just can't get a hold of. Know what the OTC online guidelines are for withdrawing a student, if it comes to that. And I think I've got that link later on in the session. But respond quickly and clearly if work is unsatisfactory or if a student is not meeting course requirements. Don't wait until midterm. Don't wait until the end of the course to say, hey, look, your work has been subpar. You haven't been in the discussions. What are we going to do? Don't let them get so far behind or, you know, before you start addressing it, okay? It's very important. That's part of good classroom management strategy. Get in touch with those students when they're not responding. Now, having said that, if you've emailed them a couple of times, they're not responding, they're not participating, they're in danger of being withdrawn, okay, you don't want to just spend all your time focusing on that student, okay? Send a couple of emails, you don't get a response, you know, do what you can. If you try calling them, they're not returning your phone calls, you've pretty much done what you can do, okay? But you do want to make an effort as quickly as possible when you know students aren't in the loop for the course. Okay. All right, let me go back over here to chat for just a minute. Might be helpful if students know the plan or know about it. And I think that's part of your communication with students. Let them know your plan. You know, I used to do that. I don't think I do it as much anymore. Shame on me. But the first part of the class, I would say, well, you know, if I don't see you in 3 or 4 days in the first week of class, I'm going to call you or email you or something like that. So they kind of know what the plan is. And the administrative withdrawal guidelines, I am so with you on, it is a confusing process that I think is still being worked out. I think they're getting closer to something really solid as far as administrative withdrawal policy, and all we can do is just try to keep up with it on the otc.edu website. That's how I do it, because I don't know, I get confused with it every once in a while too. But the main thing is to be able to keep up with your students and make sure and do all we can to help them be successful. Good classroom management. Okay, help. I have a disruptive student. I know at least once or twice in your teaching career, and in my case, it seems I have them every semester, but well, some of you may not have this issue, and I've had teachers say, well, I've taught for so many years, I've never had a problem with my students. Well, there's some of us that have had several problems with students, and you know, it's good to have a plan in place, even if you've not had one. First of all, you want to kind of know OTC's policy for dealing with inappropriate behavior, especially for behavior that violates equal opportunity guidelines. Anything, you know, if a student would post something that's racial or you know, seems harassing, what do we do with these students? And I'm going to give you a link here in a minute that kind of shows you what to do with that. But keep the policy in mind, or you know, go to otc.edu and look up that policy. But in a case of a disruptive student, intervene quickly and supportively so that other students know you are involved in being protected. Like I said, disruptive students are going to show up in discussion forums, most likely, or in group work. It's just where it happens in the online form. It could be in assignments or whatever, or on a group project, but most likely in the discussion forums. It's important just to jump in there very quickly and resolve the issue. Now, if you are having a student issue, a disruptive or a terrible posting, Don't engage that student. Go ahead and contact us here at OTC Online, and so that we've got a student affairs person here, Vanessa Germeroth, who works with these things, and she'll start an investigation on that. Never engage a student who does something hostile in your class. Immediately contact your department chair and OTC Online, and we'll start looking into that. You'll want to contact the offending student privately by email, okay, and try to see what the reason for their behavior is. Are they ranting in the discussion forum about, nothing about the content? Could be something that's happening out in the world. I don't know, something happening in their private life, okay? Get in contact with them, okay? What we want to do is we want to be supportive of that student, but we want to also have a safe environment for other students as well. So it's important to not only address that student privately, but to get other people involved with it. Now, you want to show support to other students, of course. If it's something, your other students, especially if something's been posted out in a forum and it's been seen by a lot of students, obviously you want to be supportive of those other students. And then, and I put this in here, after documenting, I'm going to talk about what I mean by documenting. If we can remove an offending post after we've documented it and after we've been in contact with the department chair and OTC Online, then we'll most likely have an offending post removed. Now, all of your courses are archived. I believe it's on a daily basis. So if there is an offending post, most likely it's been archived. And will remain with the course, but that's kind of on the OTC Online and tech side of things, so it's not anything I'm going to get into now. Just know that it's important for you to let us know if you see something that's out there, or if you just need help. You have a student with an issue and you don't know what to do with them, be sure and contact us and we can help you with that student, okay? All right, so what about really, really bad behavior? Oh my goodness. Some students threaten another student or threaten the teacher. They're overly aggressive, or they say something sexually inappropriate. Those things have to be dealt with immediately. One of the things, and I talked to Matt Harris, he's the college director of Online. His suggestion was to complete a behavioral intervention team report. And I've got the link there. But you also want to contact us here at OTC Online. You want to contact your department chair, maybe a member of the BIT team, just to get that going. That has to be taken care of, because that can be a potentially dangerous situation, okay? For especially if it's threatening or it seems overly aggressive. It's something that we want to address, even if the student's in Hawaii or out of town, not in the Springfield, Missouri area, okay? So definitely, if you have any of these issues, those have to be reported right away. Please don't delete the posting if it's a discussion board posting. If it's an email, please don't delete that. Please send that to OTC Online, forward that, let us know right away, and we'll start looking into it. Obviously, if it's something inappropriate, we're going to have to take it off, but we want to make sure that everything's documented. And the investigation, Doug, can I contact my mafia friends? Oh, sure. If you are threatened, you can contact your mafia friends. But no, seriously though, anytime you have this going on, make sure we report that. So any questions so far about student behaviors? You may never ever have a problem with this. I think in several years teaching, I probably have almost 10 years of teaching online. Most of mine have been, just not very nice comments to each other in the discussion forums. I don't believe I've ever had one that's ever made a real threatening or overly aggressive post. But I know, and I've seen them. I've seen them here at OTC. So it's just something to be aware of in case we ever have that happen, okay? Now, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move on, because I'm going to talk about a couple of cases. Now, one of the things what I couldn't do, and I tried this and we just couldn't find a good way to do this. I was going to try to show you some actual discussion threads, but we found that we couldn't get the the privacy issues with student names and things like that. We tried to delete, and it just didn't work. So I created some cases of some real life things that happened here at OTC. One of them is from an institution I currently teach for, and I'll tell you which one that is. But some of these are ones, and this is one that we've had issues with here. The names have been changed to protect the innocent or guilty, however you want to put it. But so all these are all fictitious names, but they're real situations. Okay. So our case one, where's Jane? Jane has been a model student, but after midterm, you notice that her work has fallen off. She sends an email that a family situation has come up, but that she doesn't want to withdraw. Her participation in work continues to decline. What would you do? So here's your chance to chat in. What would you do with Jane in this situation? I'll just give you about a couple seconds to chat in something. What would you do? Have you had one of these students in one of your courses? Oh, Susan, yes, email. Absolutely, that should be the #1 thing. Hello, I'm concerned I haven't seen you in class, Jane. Is there anything I can do to help? Okay. How involved should we get? Should we check out her story? What I would first do is go ahead and email her and say, hey, look, how are things going now? It depends on how much information she shares with you about that family situation. I probably wouldn't get too involved with it, but let her know that you're concerned and that you want to try to help her in any way possible. But I think we should probably draw the line and kind of just, not get too involved with that. So stay in communication with her, okay? But always offer counseling options at school. Absolutely. A lot of family situations could be resolved by, a phone call or an email to a counselor, or even coming in if they're in the Springfield area. But stay in communication with her. However, if her participation is dropping off, you really got to be aware of the OTC Attendance Administrative Withdrawal Policies. And there's that link I promised. I can't guarantee that it won't change. No, I'm just kidding. But it's there. It is what it is. And if she reaches those attendance and withdrawal points, she'll need to be administratively withdrawn. Now, and as much as we hate that, because we want all of our students to be successful, but sometimes if they're just not meeting the requirements, we have to withdraw them. So, try to work with them as much as you can. Okay. Oh, we got a question. Sometimes after admin withdrawal, I get an email back asking me to re-enroll them. What to do? Oh, yes. Well, that is a problem. And, all I can say is it's up to the instructor if you want to let the student back in. Let's say that you've administratively withdrawn a student and they say, look, I'm turning over a new leaf, or that family issue's gone away and I know I can finish the course. Well, that's instructor discretion. You can let them in. I'm a very soft person too. I typically would let them back in. But that's just me. I want to see my students be successful. However, when I do let them back in, I do set some firm due dates. If they want to make up missed work or whatever, they have to have a strict due date. Or, there's always that possibility, that's a tough one, but it's up to you if that's something that you want to do. But I like to give them the benefit of the doubt and try to let them back in, but most of the time, and Kathy, you're right, they usually still fail. And unfortunately, that's one of the bad things, but I always try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But in this case, so our classroom management tip for this case one, Be sure the students are fully aware of the expectations for attendance right up front. Even if that has to be a separate announcement, let them know right up front what the OTC attendance policy is. You can give them the link so they can go read it. Will they read it? Probably not. So if we just kind of summarize it a little bit, at least they know right up front what those attendance policies are. Okay. Case number 2, David the expert. Okay, David is the class expert. He reads a question from Alan, a classmate in an online discussion group. For him, the answer is easy, but it's obvious that his fellow classmate is having trouble. David responds, "Hey, Alan, didn't you read chapter 2? Don't ask such a dumb question." What would you do? What would you do? Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah. I see that all the time out there in the forums, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to post anything out there. Okay, so you've got David the expert, and he knows it all, but he just calls out Alan and tells him he's a dummy. What do? Ah, Cheryl, you got it. Yeah, you would probably pop in there and say, "Hey, David, there is no such thing as a dumb question." Absolutely, that'd be my first thing. Actually, this is an example of poor netiquette. Okay, you might post a response to David that there's no dumb questions, and then ask him how he would respond, how he would answer Alan's question using resources from the lesson maybe. Have David be the teacher, be the peer teacher on that question. And of course you'd want to monitor that because you never know what David might say next. And then probably I would email David and just kind of explain that why his response to Alan isn't appropriate, because I think in a lot of cases students just jump right in there and make comments, and they might not really realize that their comments might be considered inappropriate or not very nice, and a lot of times they just need guidance. I don't think that they're trying, and a lot of times I don't think they're trying to be mean or hateful or anything like that, at least not in college forums. I mean, I hope not. However, they may be. So if that behavior continues, if David still keeps acting like that, okay, then we might have to take more of a firm approach, okay, and that's where we might have a more firm email with him, tell him if that behavior still, keeps up, then, we'll have to, address it later. It just, so, it's really, usually after you explain why it's not appropriate, then that kind of shuts that off, but, and that's worked for me when I've had cases like this, but yeah, you just never know. Sometimes they're just overly aggressive and they'll just keep doing that, and that would have to be addressed. Ah, good. You could thank David for watching the forum and ask him to be more constructive. Absolutely. Okay, good, good. You guys are good. All right, let's see what case 3. Oh, case 3. I can't believe he said that. Yeah, I can say I've had this happen. Josh is really upset about his classmate Kim, who has not contributed to the group wiki. He is so angry that he posted derogatory and profane comments about Kim in the group's discussion forum. What would you do? What would you do? Susan, I like that. Not have a group. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's just say, for sake of argument, Susan, that he posted it out there in the Q&A forum about something. Let's say not about a group, or he just maybe didn't like another student's post. Ooh, I've had that. No room for profanity. Unprofessional. Relate to their future. Oh yeah. Yeah, anytime that we can tie this into a future career or teamwork on the job, that they're gonna have to be working with people they don't like sometimes on a work team, and then probably offer suggestions or recommendations on how he can you know, handle that situation a little bit better. Okay, yeah, remind him that this is a professional format here. Okay, first of all, what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't engage his comment in the discussion forum. I'd probably go ahead and email him privately. But in a case where the student might make a complaint, because notice that it's a derogatory and profane comment, and most likely Kim is a girl, we might have a little equal opportunity violation here. Make a screenshot of the post, including any other student responses to it. This is something that you'd want to report to your department chair and OTC Online immediately so that we can take a look at it. Mostly because we don't want this to go further and have Kim make a complaint, although she could. And that complaint could be against the college. It could also include you as well. So very, very important. Don't go ahead and take Josh on in the forum and start, you know, saying, well, you shouldn't have posted that, and all that kind of stuff. We would respond to that in an email, and then contact us here at OTC Online. And again, our student affairs people would start taking a look at that. If it looks like it could be a violation, you might be asked to submit a behavioral intervention team form as well. So things to take seriously. Wouldn't brush off things and just think, oh, it's just the students being, you know, just being a student. If you have any cause for concern, any kind of, you know, red flag or anything like that, you definitely want to address that. So, okay. Again, classroom management tip. Make sure you have clear make clear those expectation and rules for posting at the start of the semester, and make it bold and bright and wonderful and clear to the students as you can, so they know exactly what's appropriate and what's not. Okay, so that's just a good classroom management tip. How far do Oh, you always bring up controversial things. No. Yeah, how far do free speech privileges go in forums? And that's a real good question, and I really don't have a good answer for that. I have had students use, you know, some what I would consider unacceptable language in forums. And other students might not even think twice about it, but then some students would. So I think it kind of goes back to what your expectations are as a teacher, okay? If you say no profanity, no explicit language, no sexually suggestive comments and things like that in the forums, okay, I think you can probably, you know, eliminate that possibility to make those expectations clear. That way, if a student does post something that seems inappropriate, then you have some grounds to say, hey, look, I said this at the beginning of the class. So yeah, but that's definitely one of those topics as far as free speech privileges that it's kind of hard. It's kind of those gray areas there. So yeah, that's probably a whole other PD topic too. We should work on that. Okay. Case 4, Marcy will not participate. She's submitting good work for her assignments, but is participating little, if any, in the discussions, which are a significant portion of the overall grade in your course. Well, what would you do? Well, I would have you chat in, but we're running a little close on time. So, yeah, she's not participating in discussions. She's one of those lurkers out there, just kind of looks around, but doesn't really want to participate. You kind of want to encourage her to participate and gently remind her that her grade may be impacted. I know when I first started taking online courses as a student, I was one of those lurker students. I didn't really want to get in there and participate a whole lot because I was like, well, what if I say something stupid, okay, and like everybody will think I'm dumb? So I stayed out of the discussions a lot, but it did impact my grade at some point, and I always had the instructor always would come in, send me a little email and say, hey, look, you need to get in there and post. And you can offer suggestions about how to make a good discussion posting. Maybe she just doesn't know how to get started, you know. Just offer some suggestions or recommendations. That's part of our hat as a teacher is to help mentor and guide our students. So maybe she just doesn't know how to get started, and so that's where we would come in and help. And communicate the importance of discussion participation to the entire class. Maybe others need to hear it as well, so maybe just a reminder announcement out there. You know, it's important to get in there. I've done that as an instructor, just put an announcement out there and just say, hey, look, it's important for us to get out there and participate in discussions as part of your grade. But the sad reality is that some students won't participate, and they'll just take the grade that they get. And you don't want to wear yourself out. Just emailing and emailing and emailing, trying to get those students, because some just won't do it. And so, you know, it's just one of those judgment calls in the end. If you send a couple of emails and then the participation doesn't happen, then, you know, maybe, you know, it just isn't going to, you know, happen. Okay, so maybe some other forms of communication like a blog or journal or a wiki. Absolutely, because some students may like that Facebook type posting situation, you know, so if you can get them involved in some other way rather than just a discussion forum. So that's where those variety, remember we talked about variety of assignments, might come into play here. And maybe Marcy might be interested in that. Okay. So, but a classroom management tip in this case, a rubric or a well-defined expectation for participation should be evident in your course somewhere. Somewhere so students know what your expectations are for participation. Okay. Case 5, Johnny hates me. He's not logged in much to the course. He's submitted few assignments, which are subpar, doesn't participate in discussions. You've contacted him by email on several occasions to encourage him to participate in class, and then one day you receive an email from another student that says he's posted an inappropriate comment about you in the water cooler forum. What would you do? All right, well, okay, here we go again. You want to make a screenshot. You do need to subscribe to the water cooler forum, because if you've just had that open to students, you know, you might want to monitor that every once in a while. Make a screenshot of his comments, just for your own records, if nothing else. Contact us if you think it's necessary. If his comments seem really inappropriate, and you want those addressed, then contact us. Make a screenshot of it, contact your department chair. Try to see some humor in it, good point. Maybe he's just frustrated. Okay, maybe he's had issues as well. He's just a frustrated student. Most of our classroom management issues are from frustrated students, by the way. And if it doesn't seem too much of a, you know, if it's not a hateful or real threatening comment, you might just say, hey, Johnny, just please contact me about your concern. Contact me via email about your concerns. And then if he doesn't, still follow up with an email. But definitely if it's a threatening thing, you know, you definitely want to report that, because that's not good. Okay. All right. And so we're kind of running out of time. Here's one that I've had happen in my a course at another institution. I teach a management course, business management course. We had a debate about Apple versus Samsung cell phones. And in this debate, in this discussion forum, a male student posts that he's really excited that his husband has just purchased a new iPhone 5 for him. In a separate thread, another student in the class, William, comments, Samsung phones are for normal people, only blank use iPhones. Okay. Well, yeah. Obviously, we got a little problem here because it appears to violate equal opportunity. I did report this. I made a screenshot of the comments. I did report this. We didn't take action on it because here's what I did. I emailed William and I said, William, that was inappropriate. I said, we have a diverse, you know, everybody's individual, everybody's unique. We have a diverse class. We've got people from different backgrounds, and we all need to work together. He agreed. He didn't argue with me. I never had a problem with him further. However, However, that could have been the other student, the original initial response. That student could have easily taken that and probably run with it. So it's very important to monitor and watch those things. That's just good classroom management, okay? Again, it's important that students know right up front those expectations for proper postings in the discussion forums. Notice that most of this revolves around our discussion forums. Okay, so that's where we're going to see a lot of our issues. Okay, so we're just about out of time. I probably had a couple of extra ones to go through, a lot of them to go through, but I will, if you're interested, and if you haven't made a copy of the slides, you can. I will also send these out if you'd like a copy of them. Just some good pointers and tips for managing your classroom. It's just good for us to just be aware of these things. We may never have an issue with them, but if you do, we're here to help at OTC Online. Don't ever feel that you're left alone or you're in the dark. If there's anything that gives you concern in your classes, or if you need help with, hey, I don't know how to, write a lesson so it's engaging to my students, they're dropping, I don't know why, always contact us because we're here to help. So, yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I won't hold you up any longer. I'll stay here for a little while, but yeah. Okay, a couple of questions. I've had problems with assignment sharing, especially with high school students. So they're sharing, are they sharing like answers and things like that? What I suggest with assignment sharing is to personalize those assignments a little bit. In other words, have students, they would have to, when they're creating a response to a discussion forum or to an assignment, they have to use real life examples from their own life, or to draw in research from their own sources and things like that. Oh, had to contact the principal. Oh, wow. Oh, did they get it resolved, hopefully? I hope so. Good, 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 good. Yeah. We have assignment sharing that goes on in the online world too. And it's just email assignments back and forth. And I've had that problem. I had that problem on a recent assignment in one of my management courses. The students had used the same, two boy students had used the same papers, and they were very similar in wording. And I was like, oh my goodness. But I could not prove without a reasonable doubt that they had actually copied off of each other, because they had changed it up just enough, but I knew it was the same. So I couldn't really get them, but it's just, oh my. Most of our CIS assignments can be found on the internet. Exactly. And that's what happened with this paper I had. The paper assignment's out there, many postings out there, and they had just copy and pasted right off the internet and submitted that assignment. Changed up a few words, but it was pretty much the same. So yeah, that's difficult. If we can catch the plagiarism, and if it's word for word and it's not cited, then of course then it's plagiarism, and we can get them. But they are hurting themselves. Absolutely. Good comments. Yeah, appreciate that. All right. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for coming and taking time out of your day to be with us. Appreciate it. And if you ever have any questions or anything, feel free to contact me. All right. Thank you very much.